Welcome to another episode of the EDPS Talks, where we discuss with leading voices from all around the world their unique perspective in data protection and privacy. Today, I would like you to meet our distinguished guest, who is well known for her passion for activism and her experience in cybersecurity and IT engineering. Please welcome Mrs. Eva Galperin, the Director of Cybersecurity at the Electronic Frontier Foundation.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, Eva. Eva Galperin is noted for her extensive work in protecting global privacy and free speech, and for her research on malware and nation-state spyware in Syria, Vietnam, Kazakhstan, and Lebanon. Prior to 2007, when she came to work for EFF, Eva worked in security and IT in Silicon Valley. Her work is primarily focused on providing privacy and security for vulnerable populations all around the world. Eva has combined her combination of political science and technical background to everything related to her work. Since 2018, she has worked on addressing the digital privacy and security needs of survivors or domestic abuse. She's also a co-founder of the Coalition Against Stalkerware. So thank you, Eva, for joining us, and welcome.
Thank you so much.
Let's start with a question for a person like you, advocating for cybersecurity and raising awareness on malware and stalkerware may take hours to answer. So what does privacy mean to you, and how do you apply it in your everyday life?
Well, the good news is that this is not going to take hours to answer. It's something I've spent a lot of time thinking about. A lot of the time, when we talk about privacy in the political community or in the tech community, people imagine that you have to go and live in a shack with no internet connectivity at the top of a mountain and then throw all of your devices into the ocean, which in this scenario is located directly next to the mountain. And I think that's simply not the case. Privacy is about controlling the information about you that is available to other people, about having control over who sees what about you and when. So it does not mean becoming a recluse. It is all about control in order to show different aspects of yourself to different kinds of people, because we are different people in different aspects of our lives. The person that you are at work is very different from the person that you are at home, from the person that you are at school, from the person that you are at a restaurant or a nightclub or a festival or church. These are all very different aspects of our personality, and collapsing them all together and making them available to everyone is really not the way that most of us want to live our lives.
Indeed, I agree with you, Eva. Tell me something else. In so many years of your research in malware, what did you find out, and how do you see their development in the future?
Well, there are some really interesting sort of developments in malware that I have seen in more than a decade in the game. Probably the biggest change that I have seen in the time that I have been doing this work has been the shift to mobile malware. When I first started doing this work, there was not a proliferation of smartphones, and now almost everybody is keeping a tracking device in their pocket that also records all of their conversations, has all of their passwords, logs into all of their social media accounts and their emails, and holds their photos. This is an incredibly tempting target to all kinds of threat actors, including nation state actors. And so really seeing the shift to mobile has been the big thing that I have seen. The other sort of big development that I've seen over the last, decade and a half has been the has been the sort of spread of zero-day vulnerabilities. Now, a lot of the time when people talk about zero-day vulnerabilities, I roll my eyes because they are such a small proportion of the vulnerabilities out there, and they cause such a small proportion of the cases of the it's such a small proportion of the work that we see. However, what we've really started to see was that when I started this work, zero-day vulnerabilities were largely limited to large nation state players. So Five Eyes, Russia, maybe China, it expanded out to include players like North Korea over the time that I have been doing this. But what we have really seen is the advent of turnkey spyware for hire industry that will deploy ODAs for any nation state. So suddenly, authoritarian countries did not have to build up very large in-house technical capabilities in order to deploy zero days against journalists and activists and dissidents and sometimes their political enemies. Uh, and then zero days spread even further. The probably the latest development that I've seen in the last 4 years or so is a world in which nation state zero days are turned around and leveraged by criminal actors. And sort of the line between criminal actors and state aligned actors is increasingly blurry. So that's the world we live in now, and it's not great.
Indeed. Eva, going a little bit further, what potential challenges arise from the fast development of all these IoT devices and applications, especially concerning data protection and privacy? And what is the impact on citizens?
The proliferation of IoT devices in our homes poses an enormous both privacy and security challenge. There's been sort of a lot of discussion about the security challenges, but not enough discussion, I think, about the privacy challenges behind sort of normalizing filling our homes with always on cameras and microphones, often manufactured very cheaply and quickly in places that will do things like install malware on them before they even get into your house, or build the IoT device in such a way that it cannot be updated. So if it has some sort of terrible ODay, you simply cannot patch it, or that is simply not very safe or secure. And we've seen many cases of this. Most recently, there have been a couple of EFF investigations around cheap Android tablets and cheap TVs that were available on order through Amazon. That definitely came with malware that had been pre-installed, probably by a criminal actor. And Amazon tells us, well, when you find this stuff, just tell me about it. And I tell them, I am not a security engineer at Amazon. I don't get paid nearly as much. And expecting me to be your security department is absolutely ridiculous. You should not be selling IoT devices with malware pre-installed.
Wow, thank you for this information. Indeed, it's very risky when you go out the market without knowing exactly the technical specification of the device. Moving forward, I would like a little bit to touch upon our children. In 2001, Mark Prensky coined the term digital natives to refer to people who have grown up in the digital age. We are witnessing this more and more, and people accessing technology on younger and younger ages. So, how can we protect minors from this high exposure in terms of privacy?
Well, I am going to start by pushing back on the notion that mere exposure to screens is a risk to children's privacy, and that privacy is the biggest problem that children have online. I would say that the biggest threat to children online right now is actually legislation that is meant to protect children online. In the United States, we are seeing many very worrying legislative proposals all sort of coming together at the same time under the theme of we have to protect the children. And the ways in which the American legislators have proposed to protect the children, and this is not a partisan uh, sort of hobby horse. This is actually something that both Democrats and Republicans agree on, which is tremendously rare. They both agree that what they would like to do is to require websites to have some sort of age verification, which is tremendously dangerous because not only does it not work, but it winds up with websites being required to keep an enormous amount of very personal data about their users, which can then end up being lost in a data breach. Or that can be subpoenaed by a government. And we don't want to create those kinds of sort of big data pools that we know will inevitably go on to cause tremendous harm. And the second sort of legislative proposal that we're seeing right now that I'm very worried about is in the style of COSA, the Kids Online Safety Act. Again, this is a bipartisan proposal. Democrats and Republicans agree on this very bad idea, which is that in order to protect the children, what we need to do is we need to give state attorneys general the power to decide which websites are bad for children and then censor them at the local level. And there are a number of very serious problems with this proposal. The first being that you cannot just censor the internet for children. The internet for children is not a separate internet. And so you end up censoring the internet for everyone. And the second is that state attorneys general are not actually doctors in any way, and they are not fit to decide what is and is not healthy content for children. And lawmakers have already come out and talked about how excited they are to use legislation like COSA in order to block content about trans youth and health information for minors, and undergoing gender transition. So this would be a big blow to sort of trans rights all over the United States.
Thank you very much. Let's move on social media platforms. We know that these platforms are quite powerful and strong tools to promote communication, for example, to promote activism, but also to being a strong vehicle of misinformation, of fake news, and hate speech. What is your personal experience on that? And what do you think that a good and responsible content moderation looks like?
Well, whenever you ask someone in this line of work about content moderation, the first thing that they will do is they will look off into the distance and they will sigh and they will say, content moderation is hard. One of the biggest problems with legislating content moderation is that it assumes that it is easy, that you just have to do things like just get rid of the Nazis. Well, who are the Nazis? Just like, well, you know who they are. Just get rid of the bad people. And this is actually very hard, especially when your users number in the billions. They are located all over the world. They speak hundreds of languages. They speak in countless political and social contexts that your staff does not understand. And this is how you end up with things like Facebook's failure to address the genocide against the Rohingya. a few years ago in Myanmar. There simply weren't enough people on staff who understood the political context or who could read Burmese. And as a result, tremendous harm was allowed to proliferate online. It was a very serious problem. Um, if you would like some guidelines about what a social media platform should be doing in order to address this very hard problem, it turns out that a lot of very smart people have spent some time thinking about this and have written what are called the Santa Clara principles, which are some principles that we think platforms should apply when they are setting up their content moderation systems. Some of the most important highlights include being transparent about what the rules are, having some sort of notification and redress, so that if the platform makes a mistake, it is possible to appeal. So these things seem incredibly straightforward, but you would be amazed how often platforms fail to even reach these very basic standards.
Thank you, Eva. One more question. Privacy and cybersecurity go hand in hand. By being both positive and skeptical, of course, how do you see, how you envisage our society and our democracies in 20 years from now?
Again, this is one of those questions where everyone looks off into the distance and sighs and says it's complicated. So I'm going to cheat. I'm going to say that on one hand, yes, everything has the potential to be better. It really does. One of the things that I'm very excited about that has happened in recent years and that I would really like to see continue happen in the next 20 years is the spread of end-to-end encryption. End-to-end encryption is used by default by billions of users every day on a little tool called WhatsApp. It is used for every single message every time. It provides an incredibly high level of protection against spying, and most people don't even know that they're using it. When I started out in this field, if you wanted that level of protection for your communications, you had to PGP encrypt your email, which, let me tell you, was a user nightmare and was extremely difficult for me to teach ordinary people how to do. Um, so I think that is that's something that I'm really excited about. I think end-to-end encryption is still spreading, and it has the ability to provide us with very high levels of privacy. And this is especially important in authoritarian governments. Where sort of all legislative rules are off. If you do not have a channel through which you can have private communications, it is extremely difficult to organize. Having said that, there is also the potential for everything to get worse. We are seeing a lot of legislative proposals for that insist that we need to backdoor encryption. For many years, governments insisted that we needed to backdoor encryption in order to stop terrorism, and now they insist that once more we need to backdoor encryption in order to save children. It's not going to do either one of these things. And the arguments are largely the same, and the arguments against it are largely the same. This is a tremendous risk to our not only to privacy but also to security. So I think that we have the potential for things to get so much better, but we are also sort of on the brink of everything getting much, much worse. And unfortunately, it really is up to us to decide which way it's going to go.
Indeed. I have to be also positive like you, and we are almost at the end. So I would like to say that it was an honor to have you here with us, Eva. You share with us your experience in cybersecurity, in everyday tiny things that we need to care and to protect ourselves, how we can protect our children, and what you are doing on the other side of the Atlantic, which is quite important to take actions to protect our everyday life and our societies. I would also like to thank our listeners for being here with us to another episode of the EDPS 20 Talks. My name is Dina Kamburaki. I work for the Technology and Privacy Unit of the EDPS. And I would like to ask you to stay tuned in the EDPS channels to learn more about our initiatives of marking the 20 years anniversary of the European Data Protection Supervisor. See you in the next talk.